and welcome to Anything Relevant. And I'm going to talk to you about the UFC today. So it's been a while. There's been a couple of UFC events. You're probably wanting to hear my thoughts on them. So I'll run down a couple of key things. The fight with Stipe Miocic versus Daniel Cormier. That was one heck of a fight. And this is where you truly get into the discussion of, well, what's part three look like? They fought each other twice now and one apiece. I think these are the fights that deserve trilogies. Like him and John Jones, I am not interested in part three of John Jones and Daniel Cormier unless one thing, they do it in heavyweight. I've seen Daniel at 205 fight John Jones twice. I watched him lose twice. One got overturned because of being pissing hot in the drug tests. So I'm not interested in part three unless it's in heavyweight. But I am 100% interested in part three of Stipe versus Daniel. A rematch that needs to happen. So that was a good fight. Now let's talk about Nate Diaz versus Anthony Pettis. That was a fight, and I love the fact that those Diaz brothers still fight like as if pride rules exist, regardless of the UFC judging the fights differently. I love it. I love it. And he's absolutely right. He is geared, Diaz there, he is geared towards a 5-round fight. He is not geared towards a 3-round. 3 rounds is not enough time for him to do his work. But within that 3 rounds of beating on Anthony Pettis, holy smokes. He knows how to drag people into deep water. It is so amazing to see how he can do that. Not only that, I gotta say it's right up there for being one of the top best performances he's ever had in the octagon. And on top of it all, not only was it a great performance, but he implemented new material that he had not displayed before. And what's funny is that when he was doing interviews, Diaz, he was talking about how he's with these what do they call them? He was wrestling with these top level wrestlers, and he didn't know what Division 1 meant. So he kept saying Division 100. I got all these Division 100 guys. No one knew what he was talking about unless they really know what wrestling is, and he's probably thinking Division 1, which is a high level of expertise in wrestling. And he's wrestling with all these Division 1 wrestlers at his gym. He's been doing it for years. And then you finally see all that work get displayed in his latest fight, which he's always been good at jiu-jitsu. But takedown defense as well as takedown offense has not been displayed like this in any of those fights, like it was in this latest fight against Anthony Pettis. It was an amazing fight. The other aspect that he flexed was kicking more. This is a guy that didn't kick that much. He was basically a jiu-jitsu artist that boxed. It was interesting in the past. Now it's even more interesting because he's added more to his game. So that's interesting. Then you got your Paulo Costa versus Yoel Romero. The battle of the bodies. The battle of the scariest looking people in the UFC, because they're built like superheroes. So that fight was weird for me. It was highly entertaining. It was weird for me because it was like it looked like button mashing to me. Is basically another way that I can put it. It looked like button mashing. It looked like they're just trying to knock each other out. Which certain fighters, I expect that. I don't expect two people to punch through each other's guard, hoping it will knock them out from either one of these guys. These guys have come across as very crisp and precise strikers that I was expecting one to pick the other one apart, and it didn't happen because it kept trying to punch through each other's arms. And Yoel's opening his mouth and sticking his tongue out, showing that you can't knock me out. For people that don't know, if you stick your jaw down and get kicked in the jaw or punched in the jaw, you're going to get knocked out pretty easy. If you don't know that, that's what's going to happen. So he was, in a way, mocking his opponent, like, look, can't even knock me out. So there's a lot of ego in that octagon, and it didn't really sit well with me. But it was a good fight, though. So that was that last UFC event. Great event. Then you got the latest news with DJ Penn getting knocked out at a bar, then finding that guy after, then beating him up. I feel bad about that. I feel bad about the guy that knocked out BJ Penn and then got beat up after. I feel bad for him. I feel bad for BJ Penn. I feel bad for both of those people's families having to be connected to this story. This is a guy that had no reason to fight. He had a good family, a good life in front of him, and he chose to fight. And I respect that. Because usually you get poor people that fight because they got no other option. You know, there's that joke about boxing. The lower down the social rung you go, the more fierce the fighters that they produce. Like the reputation that Mexico has for Mexican boxers. They move forward, and they will move forward all the way into a phone booth with you and fight you in a phone booth. They're not really known for running away from you in the boxing ring. So with this type of background, BJ Penn fighting to the point where he's on like a 7 losing skid in the UFC, and then he gets knocked out outside of the octagon at a bar, I feel bad. I feel bad, and I feel like someone in his entourage is failing him. A family member is failing him. I don't know. Someone is. Someone's not getting through to him. And I feel bad about that. Then you get the Conor McGregor controversy of going into a bar and punching a man in the face because the man doesn't want to drink his whiskey and maybe he's too rude about it. And then everyone's mad at Conor McGregor. Then he comes out with this really good apology, and some people aren't buying it and other people are. I heard Matt Serra, former UFC champion that beat GSP, George St. Pierre, and then lost to George St. Pierre, and now is a coach. Now, when he was talking, he's like, why does Conor get a pass? Why? Because he made a lot of money? He put the UFC on the map? He got everyone talking about it? He won some fights? But why does he get a pass? Oh, he apologized well. Well, why does he get a pass, though? This isn't new behavior. This is just less. Punching an old man in the face is less than grabbing a dolly and throwing it through the windshield of a bus. That was worse. So he's doing less, but he's still rowdy. Like, here's another. Mike Tyson said he's a good man. He's a sweet, gentle man. A nice man. So I think that Matt Serra's onto something when he puts it into that light. I don't think an apology is going to fix this for Conor. I think Conor was always a wild guy, and this money just fed that, and that he figures he can walk around like a gangster, punching people, throwing dollies to keep his money high. But this is no different than threatening someone to behave. It'll only work for so long. Being controversial like Connor and being a jerk, I'm going to say that, acting like a jerk, is only going to keep you popular for so long. And this is exactly what's happening. No one's calling him out anymore. Diaz at the end of the fight said, look, I got a belt that I'm defending, and it's not a UFC belt, it's a reputation belt. The belt is about who's the baddest man. And he thinks he's it. So he wants to put that belt on the line against Jorge Masvidal. None of these guys are calling out Conor McGregor anymore because he sat on the sidelines being too good for everyone. Well, that's what you get. If I sat in a room and I said, man, I'm too nice, I'm too good to talk to you, and everyone that walked up to me at that party got the same answer, you know what's going to end up happening by the end of the night? I'm sitting alone. Everyone's going to got the message. Yeah, I got it, man. And then it's just not going to bother with me. That's exactly what's happened with Conor. He said to everyone, you're not big enough. You're not a big enough deal. You're not a good enough talent. You're just not good enough. Well, here's the problem, Conor. You've lost now. Which means there's easily good enough people. It's just an ego thing. And now that these destroyers are on a tear and they're not calling him out anymore, he's not a benchmark because he's too controversial. He's too high on himself. And his last couple of fights, he's lost. So no one really cares. And now he knows that. He's the last to know that. So now he wants to turn it around. Get him to ask John Jones how that works. When you run too far in a direction, you're just too far gone to come back. And that's this. So with him punching an old man over whiskey, I don't care. In the sense of his apology, I don't care. I'm glad he did, but I don't care at the same time. I don't care whether he's going to promote another whiskey. I don't care. I don't even drink alcohol anyway. So what would I care? If he gets in the octagon again. That's the only thing I care about. And what do I expect depending on his opponent? Well, if he fights Nate Diaz at 170 pounds again, I see Diaz winning again and finishing that trilogy. What happens if he gets back in the octagon at 155 pounds against Khabib? I see Khabib doing exactly what he did, mopping the floor with him. So what does that leave him? Well, people are talking, why don't you fight Frankie Edgar? Why don't you fight Donald Cerrone? Why don't you fight someone that is on a rebound like you? That's what he should be fighting next. In my opinion, that's all he deserves. But here's the thing, no matter who he fights, he's still going to get paid well. Maybe not as well as some of his other fights, but well enough. But not only that, it'll elevate the person that he's fighting. That'll be good for business for the other person that gets that fight. So whoever gets that Conor fight, I really hope that it changes their lives. And not only that, I really hope that whoever gets it is not Diaz and not Khabib. And there's a reason, because these two people have worked too hard, way too hard, to give that second chance for Conor McGregor. In my opinion, Conor McGregor has made too many mistakes and now needs to eat some humble pie and fight some people further down the rankings to earn his way back up again. He lacks humility, so he needs a new lesson. And that's my opinion on McGregor's controversy lately, and my thoughts on the latest UFCs. And I gotta say, for all of you that don't know this, I hope if you do, awesome. If you don't, look into it. The next big UFC event is going to be Khabib going up against Dustin Poirier. That's going to be a fight. Dustin Poirier is a guy that knows how to not get dragged down to the ground, knows how to get up if you drag him down, and he knows how to strike. He's got a long reach, and he knows how to fight in a phone booth, and he knows how to fight at a distance. So if you have a hard time taking him down because he keeps getting up and he's got really good defense and he knows how to fight in the phone booth and knows how to fight at a distance, that's a really good formula against Khabib. Khabib there is, what is he good at? Closing distance. He's got unorthodox striking. Is he the best striker out there? No. But he's highly unorthodox. And lately, because of his competition, he's implemented new tricks into his game. He went up against a kicker. So what did he do? He kicked a lot in that fight to prove that he learned something new. And as well as this, and when you add that into the game with unorthodox stance, unorthodox delivery, like when you're fighting, you're staring your opponent in the face, but you're also watching his body. When you see the hips turn like on a clock at a certain angle, you know a kick's coming. When you see them up on the balls of their feet, you know what they're wanting to do next. When you see them flat on their feet, you know what's going on. These are all tells. And when you have someone that's very unorthodox with kicking and very unorthodox with punching, that knows how to close distance very well, and then his most dangerous weapon is wrestling, whew, that's a pick'em fight. I just talked both of them up just to give you why. Josh, who do you think's going to win? No clue. None at all. There's others where I feel super guilty, but you tell me of a fight and I'm like, so-and-so's going to win. Really? Yeah. I will be surprised the other way around. Am I often wrong with these? I've been wrong doing this, but I don't do this often. There's a part of me that feels that it's rude because I know that life is so unpredictable that you can have these situations that when you find out after the fight, when they do the interview, I broke my foot, a family member died, I lost my house. And you get these reasons like, oh, I had no clue. I had no clue at all. I'm sorry. So this is why I don't predict fights often. But when I do, I feel guilty. And I usually get them right. But I get them wrong. And that keeps me from gambling. That's what keeps me from gambling. Because I do get them wrong. And with that, there's a lot of factors that I am just not savvy. I just don't know. And that's why I got it wrong. But then there's that other any given Sunday aspect. Well, if we did this fight last week, what would have happened instead of what happened tonight? If we do this next week, what will it look like? There's always that wild card. So yeah, this is why I don't really predict. But so yeah, that latest UFC, check it out. Khabib versus Dustin Poirier. It'll be a great fight. The card's pretty good. And thank you for joining me talking about UFC. Alrighty. Till next time.